Hey guys, Mr. Mackey here. Now, welcome to the last episode of Algebra Week. And to finish off, we're going to be going over a formula that can only be used when we can't factorise quadratic equations. But this one we can factorise, and this was the challenge I set to you yesterday. So let's do this one first. Now the first thing we have to do is we have to move everything so it's on one side and so there's 0 on the other side of the equation. So, for this we're going to be adding 3 on both sides. So that becomes 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 all equaling 0. Now, this is the trick, the bit that people might have struggled on, in what they put in each of the brackets. So, we have a 2x squared. What do you times together to get 2x squared? Well, you have an x, because x times x equals x squared. But we don't put an x in this bracket. No, instead we're doing 2x. The reason why is because 2x times x will get us x squared. Always remember the number in front of the x, the coefficient as we like to call it. Now, because of this, when we were doing our adding, the numbers we're looking for, one of them will be doubled because we're doing 2x times the number in this bracket. So let's firstly think of two numbers that when multiplied together gets us 3. Well, the good news is there's only one set of numbers that does that. 1 and 3. So we know that. Brilliant. But when you add 1 and 3 together, you don't get 5, you get 4. But when we expand these brackets, we'll be multiplying whichever number 1 or 3 is placed in here by 2. So we have to include that factor. So what is 3 times 2? That's 6. Add 1, that gets us 7. Does that make 5? No. What's 1 times 2? 2. Add 3. That does get us 5. So we put our 1 here and our 3 here. The reason why is because when we're timesing that 2x by 1, we get 2x, 3 by x, you get 3x, added together will get us 5x. You just need to account for that 2x. But that's not what I asked you to do. I asked you to factorise, yes, but the overall thing I wanted you to do was to solve this problem. So if this all equals 0, what must each of the x values be? Well, if 2x plus 3 equals 0, then the x value for that must be negative 3 over 2. Because 2 times negative 3 over 2 is negative 3, add 3 gets you 0. And then for this bracket, x plus 1 equals 0, the best value for x would be negative 1, because negative 1 and 1 will still get us 0. Brilliant. Now, this is where it gets a bit more challenging, and for this video, you will need a calculator. Now, whenever we look at quadratic equations or expressions, we must always think that the coefficient, the number in front of the x squared, will be a. In this case, that is a 1. The coefficient, the number in front of the x, is b, which in this case is 4. And the number that doesn't have an x value, just a normal whole number, is c, which in this case is negative 6. So we first need to find what a, b and c are. Now this is an example of a quadratic equation that cannot be factorised because there are no whole number factors that multiply together to get negative 6 and add together to get 4. So this is when we're going to be doing something called the quadratic formula. Now the good news is you don't need to know this formula off by heart. You will be given it. But you still need to know how to use it. So what you need to do is you need to find out what your A is, what your B is, and what your C is, and you need to write this. Negative B plus or minus, because there's two different values, the square root of B squared minus 4 times A and times by C all over 2 times A. Now the reason why I've done a plus or a minus is because, remember, whenever we're doing quadratic equations, there's always two different values. And for this, we'll be adding the first time and then subtracting the second time, because also when we're square rooting problems, there are always a positive and a negative answer. So, let's do this. Let's substitute this into the quadratic formula and solve it. And you will need your calculator. So, we know that our b is 4. So we put negative 4. Let's do plus for this one. The square root of 4 squared, which is 16, minus 4 times by a, which is 1, times by c, which is negative 6, all over 2 times a, which is 1, which is 2. So enter that in your calculator. Negative 4 plus the square root of 4 squared, which is 16, minus 4 times by 1 and negative 6, all over 2. And what do you get? You get negative 2 plus root 10. Now that's one of the solutions. Now for the other one, you just do the exact same thing, but with a negative symbol. So you replace the plus with a minus, and you will get negative 2 minus root 10. And that's all you have to do. In some questions, they may ask you to put it into a certain number of decimal places, and that's what we'll do with the next question. But if they ask you to find the exact value, this is the exact value, and those are the two solutions for this equation. Let's do another one. Now we're going to use the quadratic formula to solve this equation. And for this, I want to do it to 2 decimal places, so answers have to be to 2 decimal places. So let's do this. First, we need to find out which one's A, which one's B, and which one's C. So this one's A. This one is B. And this one is C, because it's not 9, it's negative 9. So now let's substitute this all into our problem. So, first bit is negative B, so we have negative 10. It's plus or minus, so I'll do plus. Then in our square root, we do b squared, so in this case it's 10 squared, getting us 100, minus 4 times by a, which is 2, and also by c, which is negative 9. And then that's all over 2 times our a, which was 2. Which gets you 4. So now enter that into your calculator. So you enter negative 10 plus the square root of 100 minus 4 times by 2 and negative 9 all over 2 times 2, which is 4. And you will get to 2, so you'll get negative 5 plus 4 plus root 43 all over 2. But I've asked to do it to 2 decimal places, so you press the S and D button in the middle of your calculator, and you will get to 2 decimal places 0.78. Because when you see it, it's 0.778, you have to round it up. Now, you need to get the other values, so instead of the plus at the top, you change that into a minus. And you'll get minus 5 plus root 43 all over 2. You press your S and D again, and you'll get for the other value negative 5.78. That's how you do it. It's pretty easy when you think about it. Let's do another one. So let's try this one. We have x squared plus 4x plus 7. I've already identified what A, B and C are. Let's get on with it. So the first bit is negative b, so we do minus 4. Then we do our plus or minus, we're going to do plus. Then we do b squared, so 4 squared gets us 16. Then we do minus 4 times by our a, which is 1, times by our c, which is 7. And we do that all over 2 times our a. So it would be 2 times 1, which is 2. Now enter that into your calculator, guys. So we do negative 4 plus root 16 minus 4 times by 1 and 7 all over 2. And what do you get? Yeah? Did you get a math error? Because I did. Now, math error basically means that there are no real solutions to this equation. If you go back and do it with the negative instead of a plus, you will also get a math error. That sometimes happens. Some equations are impossible to solve because you can't actually get a real number when doing them. And some questions might try and trick you by doing stuff like that. So, all you have to write for this is that there are no real solutions. Because this equation is impossible to solve. And that's what some problems are like. Pretty good, eh? Now, obviously, because this is the last episode of Algebra Week, and next week we're going to be doing some general number topics, because I haven't done number in a while, we're going to do the challenge now. So try and solve this equation and find the two values of x. Pause the video to do it, and I'll go over it in 3, 2, 1, now. So, the first thing we have to do is we have to move all our values to one side of the equation. And for this we're going to be balancing. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to minus 6x on both sides. So that will then become x squared minus 6x plus 4 equaling 8. Then we've got to balance it again. So we've got to be minus 8 on both sides. So that will become x squared minus 6x minus 4, all equaling 0. Now we need to substitute our a, b and c into the quadratic formula. So for this, the x squared has a 1 at the front, but we just don't use it, so that's a. Our negative 6 is b, and our negative 4 is c. So let's substitute it. So negative b, well, b is negative 6, so we just turn that into a positive. That becomes 6. Plus or minus, we're going to do a plus. Square root of 4, square root of b squared, so negative 6 squared equals 36. All minus 4 times a, which is 1, times negative 4, all over 2 times a. A is 1, so it's all divided by 2. So let's substitute this into your calculator. So 6 plus the square root of 36 minus 4 times by 1 and negative 4 all over 2. You will get 3 plus root 13. I don't mind leaving it as just a square root for this. So one of the values of x is 3 plus root 13. And then we substitute the plus with a minus, and that will get 3 minus root 13. And that's how we use the quadratic formula. All you have to do is substitute values for x in it, and you can do it. Now, that is the last lesson of Algebra Week. We'll be going back to algebra soon because there's so much to teach in algebra, I couldn't do it all in 1 week. We'll go back to it in maybe about 3 or 4 weeks' time. Now, next week, as I said, we're focusing solely on number. So the first 3 days will be percentages. Then I'll do a couple of sessions on negative numbers, and then we'll work from there. If there's any topics you want me to cover in future videos and do weekly topics on them, comment below. Or if you'd rather not comment, message me privately and we'll arrange it. I'm looking forward to going over algebra again because I love this topic and I cannot wait to start number again next week. I've missed it. Have you? Have a good Sunday. Keep your children learning. Keep on learning yourselves and take care.